Yeah, well, I think the reason it's barely talked about is because it's the logical, inevitable consequence of this idiot moral posturing that's been going on for 15 years. And it is indicative of a degree of blindness that is almost miraculous in its totality. I mean, how in the world could you possibly think that making your energy grid non resilient and then relying on the Russians was a reasonable move forward? And this is independent in some sense of whether you have good relations with the Russians. And how could you possibly think that making energy more expensive was going to be good for the planet when it devastates poor people, especially when you're also purporting to care above all for the poor and oppressed? Like, this is so utterly preposterous and so backwards that it couldn't, in some ways, it couldn't be, we couldn't be doing more damage to ourselves in some sense if we were trying. And, you know, Bjorn just sort of casually mentioned, and this is no slur on Bjorn, that's for sure, but it was an aside that, well, it's probably 1.2 billion people that are going to be going hungry this fall. It's like, what? What? In a world where there could be enough food to make everyone fat, as we've seen happening over the last 2 decades, we're actually going to enter a period where mass starvation is a thing again. And so, and we're doing that because we're being moral and we're trying to save the planet. That's really what you think. That's really how you think the evidence is laying itself out. Well, obviously, the Dutch farmers and these sensible working class types, they know that something's up. They know that the jig is up. You know, and I don't know if you know this, but these protests are receiving almost no coverage in places like Canada. Our national newscaster just won't talk about it at all. And it's because they know, I think in some real sense, that this is the death knell for the utopian globalist agenda. And this is happening the same week that Trudeau has announced that he's going to force the farmers, because he likes force, because of course he's saving the planet and force is justifiable. He's going to force the Canadian farmers into exactly the same conundrum that the Dutch government is forcing the Dutch farmers into. And, you know, I know farmers in Canada, and they're not the backwoods rubes that intellectual elites like to presume they are. These people use satellite technology. They know to the square foot where the fertilizer in their land is going. They're really motivated to reduce fertilizer use because it's expensive, and so they want to target it as carefully as possible. But instead of working with them and talking with them and meeting with them with a degree of respect that's clearly earned and deserved, the government just says, well, you guys could be doing a better job. It's like, well, we're doing the best job of anybody in the world.